Hi guys, and welcome back to Phat Pack Magic, where we've got something really awesome for you guys here today. We've got Pioneer at Darkside Games with a huge turnout for their FNM event. Just under 40 people are playing in this Pioneer event alone. And guys, I gotta tell you, this format looks so great. It's like the Wild West of Magic development. Like, I've seen Jeskai Fires, I've seen a Bant deck with Collected Company, I've seen this really weird mono-white deck that looks like it's an enchantment and Voltron kind of deck. It's really intense. And today on the camera, we've got Ben Friedman, who's running Mono Black, and Brian Hickey, who's on Simic Aggro, and they're just about to start. And Brian starts off with a great turn one play of an Elvish Mystic, but Ben looks like he's got the Fatal Push, killing the Mystic before it can get off, and passes the turn back. And this is what the Mono Black deck does. It slowly one-for-ones you, and then just slowly gains advantage with cards like the one-drops, like Blood-Soaked Champion, and the Knight of the Even Blade. But Ben has another one-drop to follow it up with. It's a Gilded Goose. The goose is loose, and here comes the food. Ben goes ahead and draws. Let's see. He's got Castle Lothwain in there, but it looks like he's going to opt for a Thoughtseize instead. And we're going to see what is in Brian's hand. And it looks like Oko. Oko, couple of lands, and a Questing Beast. Man, so Brian has a really stellar turn no matter what Ben Friedman takes. He can either pop off that Questing Beast and using the Goose to ramp, or he can make Oko and turn that food into a 3/3 elk and start crashing in at Ben Friedman's face. Question is, what does Ben think that he's going to have an easier time to deal with? And it looks like the Questing Beast is the least of his concerns, as he lets Brian keep that in hand. And he's going to follow it up with that Blood-Soaked Champion. And here's the crazy thing. Those black one-drops are pivotal in Vintage Cube for Mono Black Aggro. So me watching Ben Friedman's deck is just like, yeah, I know these cards, I know this, I know that, I know that. It's pretty fun. But looks like Brian has drawn a land for turn, and he's deciding on whether or not he wants to drop an Unhinged Forest, which looks really beautiful by the way, or a Yavimaya Coast. And he's going to go with the Coast, pop off the Goose. Here comes Questing Beast, crashing in at Ben, bringing him down to 14, and acting as a giant blocker against that Blood-Soaked Champion. As Ben Friedman draws for turn, plays the castle, and Scrap Heap Scrounger passes it back. Now the question is, he let Brian have the Questing Beast in hand. Does that mean he was more afraid of the Oko in this situation? I mean, I guess either way, I guess the Oko is the correct pick here because he can just keep making food and making elks. And one Questing Beast is a bit easier to deal with than an army of elks. But Brian has drawn a Love-Struck Beast here, but he's going to crash in at Ben, who can't block. And that Questing Beast has Vigilance, which is incredibly relevant here, being able to swing and be on blocking duty. But Love-Struck Beast is going to go on an adventure, and he's going to pick out a very pretty 1/1 white creature token that's a human to fall in love with before maybe casting out of himself? Ah, yes. And the Love-Struck Beast is going to join the 1/1 human and applying tons of pressure to Ben Friedman. Next turn, he's got 10 power ready and aimed at his face, and he has no blockers available. So here comes an Urborg, turning everything into a swamp. And here is Rankle, the master of Prankles, swinging in for 3 in the air at Brian. Now the question is, what modes does Ben Friedman want to take? Because all Brian has in hand are lands. So Brian takes 3, goes down to 17, and Ben is deciding on how he wants to follow up with Rankle's ability. He's going to go for a sack ability, and that's going to eat a Gilded Goose. He was probably hoping that he could take out the 1/1 human and prevent Brian's Love-Struck Beast from attacking, but as it stands, Brian has lethal on board, 10 damage Xaxes, and there we go. And Brian takes game 1 off the back of Questing Beast, which proves that it's one of the main workhorses of the green deck. No joke and nothing to fight about, Questing Beast is gonna get your game done. But real quick, did you guys like the mats that were featured on the match below? Well, if you did, stay tuned because a word from our sponsors will tell you exactly how you can get one kinda like it. Hey guys, I want to give a quick shout out here to Your Playmat. These guys offer fully customizable playmats, card sleeves, and foil playmats. Now, I wouldn't be talking to you guys about these mats unless I personally believed in them, so check this out. Yeah, that is the Mox Jet Altar on the Phat Pack Magic draft videos, and we put that on a mat. And here's the best part. Your Playmat believes in me and believes in my channel and therefore believes in you guys. So that's why they're doing a special discount code only for Phat Pack Magic YouTube subscribers. Put in the code PPM15 and get 15% off any playmat you order. Foil, regular, anything you're looking for. PPM15. So what are you guys waiting for? Go make your own mats and show off your style. And we're back. Ben Friedman and Brian are drawing up their opening hands, and Ben has a long road ahead of him. He's got to get not 1, but 2 games after a loss. Granted, he's going to be on the play this time, but let's see what he's got. And it's a turn 1 Thoughtseize, one of the most devastating plays, and it looks like it's got a lot of juicy targets. A Questing Beast that ran over Ben in the previous game is on the chomper for Thoughtseize. But he's also got a Love-Struck Beast, which would really ruin Brian's turn 1 play, and that's what he's going to go for. Opting to prevent Brian from being able to go turn 1 into a human, and then turn 2 into the pivotal Smuggler's Copter that has been seeing a lot of play this weekend. Brian draws, and it looks like he's got an out, and he's got the Llanowar Elves. So he plays Botanical Sanctum, and here's Llanowar Elves, completely ruining Ben's whole play of keeping Brian on a time lock mode. Ben looking at his hand and drops a Mutavault. And he's got another Thoughtseize, but he opts not to utilize it yet. Brian draws, and it's another land for Brian. But thankfully, that Smuggler's Copter is going to be able to do some work. But he drops a Gilded Goose. And here comes the Smuggler's Copter. It wouldn't be able to attack this turn anyway, so Brian is just utilizing all of his mana possible and making the most efficient plays. And Ben drops another land and says pass. Now the question is, does Brian roll out that Questing Beast, or does he play it safe and crew the Copter? In fact, well, he can actually do both, but it's going to take a bit of pain because he's going to have to play the Shock Land. Well, he also has the Botanical Sanctum, never mind. So he's going to drop the Botanical Sanctum. And he's wondering, what is Ben holding back? What does he have in hand? Sacrifices the food, plays a Questing Beast, crews the Copter. Here comes attacks, but nope. Before attacks, he is going to Fatal Push the Copter and take 4, except no, he's going to Noxious Grasp that Questing Beast. Oh wow, completely mitigating all of Brian's hand, because that Smuggler's Copter was going to be able to do a lot of work in filtering out the lands that Brian had in hand, and Ben is going to gain a life in this exchange off the Noxious Grasp. Now Ben decides it's my turn, and here comes Rankle, swinging in, haste flying, dealing 3 damage to Brian, and now the question is, what modes is he going to pick? And he's going to opt to... Each player is going to draw a card and lose a life, taking Brian down to 16 and Ben down to 18. But now Ben has a clear advantage, and Brian has drawn a Wicked Wolf, but unfortunately he used the food last turn. So it can potentially be just a 4-mana removal spell and trade with the Rankle, but Brian doesn't look like he wants to do that. He wants to get another food token in. He wants to make that Wicked Wolf indestructible. So he taps to the Llanowar, swinging in, or, nope, wait, what? Yep, he swings in, bringing Ben down to 17. Because that's, I guess, its only play. But Ben draws, and he's got a grip of goodies. So he swings in, he doesn't swing in, wait for it. No, he's gonna pay 2 mana first and drop a Scrappy Scrounger. Now he's gonna swing in, dealing 3 damage to Brian, and it looks like that Scrappy Scrounger is gonna eat the dirt to try and make Brian lose a creature, and that Scrappy Scrounger is just gonna be able to recur at a later date. Ben deciding on how he wants to plan this out. Does he want to let Brian draw more outs? But then again, Ben Friedman's deck is able to draw as well, so they're both going to take a point and draw a card and sacrifice a creature. Brian's going to pitch that Llanowar Elves. Ben's going to drop the Scrappy Scrounger. And he's got a grip of cards in hand, but Brian has the Questing Beast. Except Ben Friedman's got a Thoughtseize. Utilizing that Thoughtseize that he had a few turns ago. He's looking at Wicked Wolf and a Questing Beast. Now, that Wicked Wolf is going to be really dangerous here because the Goose can make a food and then drop the Wicked Wolf, and that's exactly what Ben Friedman's going to opt for, nuking the Wicked Wolf from Brian's hand and passing the turn back. But that Questing Beast is going to deal a lot of damage, and unfortunately it doesn't have reach, so it can't block the Rankle. But Brian has drawn a pivotal card in hand, and it is Stubborn Denial. So he taps 2, 3, 4, and here comes Questing Beast. Move to attack, Noxious Scraps. No, Stubborn Denial, and Ferocious is 4 or greater, not 5 or greater, and Ben takes down, goes down to 10. He's got to figure out a way to deal with that Questing Beast, but Brian is tapped out. Ben drops the Knight of the Ebon Legion, tapping 3. He's got Murderous Rider in hand. Does he want to pop it now, or does he kind of want to wait? He's going to Murderous Rider the Questing Beast, going down to 8. And crashing in with Rankle. They are neck and neck with Brian going down to 9. And the question is, does Ben have the chutzpah to make Brian lose another life, draw another card, and put a counter on that Knight? Or does he want to try and sack it and get rid of that Gilded Goose? Ben deep in the tank here, because Brian has a gigantic amount of outs that he can do, and Ben is down to his last few cards, but he has Castle Lochthwain in play. He can theoretically start drawing cards. He also has Mutavault if he wants to try and cash that in and trade that for a Gilded Goose. But he taps it, he's going to make Mutavault a creature, opting to go, we are going to each sacrifice a creature, and we're each going to draw a card, says Ben. This is going to have dealt 4 damage to Brian and let Ben draw a card, and the Knight of the Ebon Legion is going to become a 2/3 pumping up that power just a little bit here and there. And Brian draws for turn, and it's another land. He is completely flooded out, but he has a Lovestruck Beast here, and he's going to make a 1/1 human and a 5/5 monster that's going to be able to block pretty profitably. Now, Ben Friedman is low on life, but that Murderous Rider as a 2/3 with lifelink is going to be able to change the math here a bit. And that's exactly what he's going to do. The question is, does he want to try and bait out the Lovestruck Beast in a blocking and bluff with his Knight? Unfortunately, he doesn't have the mana to pump it anymore, but he's deep in the tank here. He's really thinking about this, because Brian could draw a Questing Beast and just make Ben's life a nightmare. So he's going to swing in, dealing 3 to Brian, bringing him down to 5. And does he want to put another counter on that Knight of the Ebon Legion? And Rankle it has so many abilities that it's hard to pick exactly the amount that you want to do, if you want to do any at all. And he's going to opt to sacrifice a creature, and it's going to kill that 1/1 human, preventing the Lovestruck Beast from attacking. And they're each going to discard a card, and Ben discards a Blood-Soaked Champion that he's going to return to play because of its raid ability. And Brian is facing down lethal next turn. He can block with the 5/5, but he needs another creature, and he doesn't draw it. Now, he can try and hold it back, pretend to have a trick, and maybe Ben will only swing in with the Rankle, allowing him enough time to draw something better. But Brian is deep in the tank here. He's only got an Unhinged Forest and a Breeding Pool. He passes the turn back. Ben draws. Not much in hand. He can use Castle Lockthwain. He's got a land. So he can use Castle Lockthwain to try and draw a card. Maybe try and bait out a trick, but he swings in with the Owl Strike, all 5, and here we go! Down goes Brian! Matching up the game count 1-1 as Ben takes over, having disrupted Brian's plan, killing off Questing Beasts left and right, even after counter magic, but all those Thoughtseizes, and Ben was able to take the game. They're shuffling up, getting ready for game 3. Here we go. This is for all the marbles in round 1 of the Darkside FNM. And Brian has a pretty decent hand. He's got a Stubborn Denial to start with. Maybe he can try and get Ben on the turn 1 Thoughtseize. They're deciding on whether or not they want to keep. And Brian says, here is a Breeding Pool, and once upon a time, one of the major cards that has been showing up in all the green decks, a practically free Impulse, as we see here, as Brian decides on what card he wants to grab, and it's a Botanical Sanctum. And the question is, does he want to follow it up? And he accidentally taps his Breeding Pool with his sleeve and plays an Elvish Mystic, which is a fine turn 1. But Ben's turn 1 looks like it has a Thoughtseize in mind. Here we go. Swamp tapped. And it's a Thoughtseize. Botanical Sanctum, Stubborn Denial, Oko, Smuggler's Copter, and Lovestruck Beast. Now, unfortunately, Oko and Smuggler's Copter are so deep threats. However, Ben has the Fatal Push in hand. So Smuggler's Copter has a short lifespan. The question is Oko scarier or is the Lovestruck Beast scarier? And Ben says resoundingly, Oko is scarier. And I don't disagree with that. Oko is a very scary card. But Ben drops down to 18 and leaves Brian with little to do on his turn 3. Except for, well, I mean, Smuggler's Copter and holding up counter magic. But hey, you know what? That's not all he wanted to do. He probably wanted to play that Oko on turn 3. But we're looking at Botanical Sanctum, and he's deciding on what he wants to do. He can run out a 1/1 human token with the Elvish Mystic and set up the Lovestruck Beast for next turn, and then play the Smuggler's Copter. Or just run out the Lovestruck Beast because the Mystic is a 1/1. He's tapping 1, and he's going to make a 1/1 human token. And looks like the Smuggler's Copter's plan is in effect. Now, Brian has 2 ways to crew that copter, and Ben has a lot of removal in hand. Question is what he wants to drop. I mean, looks like a Castle Lochthwain is his land for the turn over a Mutavault, potentially overcoming Summoning Sickness, but he might just need that double black. Because Brian has pretty much emptied out his hand, and that Smuggler's Copter is so powerful. Just being able to kind of loot through all your chaff and get to what you need while dealing 3 damage every turn is incredibly important. But Brian is going to Fatal Push that Elvish Mystic, and then he's going to play a Knight of the Even Legion. Question is he afraid of the Smuggler's Copter? But Brian has drawn another one. So redundancy is key. But he also knows that the Stubborn Denial is in Brian's hand. And Brian draws an Oasis and opts to discard the Smuggler's Copter to the Smuggler's Copter, bringing Ben down to 15. He plays a Hashtag Oasis, which is, pretty legit, offering a pump option. But he's going to tap 3 and take 1 and bring out a Steel Leaf Champion, a 5/4 that doesn't really care about creatures with power 2 or less, and that seems to be the theme of Brian's deck. Questing Beast, Steel Leaf Champion, so many creatures that just don't care about power 2 or less. Ben's going to tap 3. And before the Stubborn Denial can go off, he's going to have an adventure with the Murderous Rider, killing off that Steel Leaf Champion, and swinging at Brian, bringing him down to 16, but Ben is down at 13. And Brian's deck is full of live draws. Brian digging through his hand, deciding on how he wants to play it out. Does he want to crew first? And that's exactly what he does. Swinging at Ben, drawing, deciding on what he wants to pitch. And it looks like the Stubborn Denial is not long for this world. He doesn't have a lot of creatures that can really go off of it, but he brings Ben down to 10, and he's going to pay 3, and here comes a Lovestruck Beast that's a 5/5, able to block through that Knight, even making him trade. But here's a Noxious Grasp, killing that Lovestruck Beast and gaining Ben a life. 2 more mana. Here's a Scrap Heap Scrounger. Swing in. 15. But that Copter is going to be able to crew up and fly again. And looks like Brian has drawn a Oko. Now the question is, does he make the human a 3/3 elk? Or does he make the Copter a 3/3 elk that will allow him to block and kill the Scrap Heap Scrounger? But no, he's going to swing in, bringing Ben down to 8, looting with the Copter, discarding a Llanowar Elves. And the question is he going to run out Oko, or is he going to play out that Lovestruck Beast? The Lovestruck Beast is going to be a big fatty that's going to be able to block. He can't do both, but just a 5/5 blocker is pretty good in this situation. He's going to be able to eat that Scrap Heap Scrounger and then maybe eat the Knight of the Even Legion for lunch next turn. But Ben has a card waiting in the wings, and that's a Murderous Rider. Plays his land for turn. Ben with only one card in hand. Now, he'll be able to swing in with the Knight and use its pump effect if he needs to, which will pump up the damage and give it Death Touch, which will swing through the Lovestruck Beast. But the question is whether or not Ben wants to make that trade. Because every turn, he's losing the race at the moment against that Smuggler's Copter, which is able to crew and swing, going right over Ben's board and swinging at his face, and looting for Brian. Now, Ben is really in the tank here. Does he want to try and hold back and block the... Looks like he's going to want to cast the Murderous Rider. Now he's going to be able to do that and hold up mana for whatever he has in hand. That's the play. Here we go. Cast Murderous Rider. Black, and Mutavault. He's got a Mutavault available to do on Chump Block duty as well. I mean, he has no good attacks here at this point. Unless he wants to try and bait Brian into blocking with the Lovestruck Beast against the Scrap Heap Scrounger. But that doesn't seem like a good trade at the moment. And analyzing the board. That Hash-Up Oasis. That's going to be able to pump up something, giving it +3/+3. Lowering the clock on Ben. He's really in the tank, and he passes the turn back. Here we go. Brian has a stack of cards in hand, and they're all good. Here's another Hash-Up Oasis to follow along. Now the question is, does he want to drop that Hydra and chew up the Knight of the Even Legion, or does he want to play out Oko and start really making the team big? He can easily turn that Crewable Thopter into a 3/3 that'll swing in, but it'll lose the loot ability. Brian really debating on how he wants to use this Oko here. If he wants to use this Oko here. Now, the one thing that's going to alter the combat map is Murderous Rider has lifelink. And not so irrelevant is the fact that Murderous Rider on death will be put at the bottom of the library. But here we go. Brian crews up the Thopter, swings in for 8. And he draws a Stubborn Denial, and he's going to discard a Steel Leaf Champion, holding that up. But Ben has Mutavault. How our block's going to be decided, and all 3 are going to be blocking the Lovestruck Beast. And Brian's going to have the option of killing 2 of his creatures. Question is, which 2 are the most important? It looks like the Murderous Rider and the Mutavault. While the Knight of the Even Legion is going to have another day. Ben taking 3 damage, bringing him down to 10 because he gains 2 life from the Murderous Rider, bringing him up to 13, then loses 3 life, going down to 10. But now Brian has the option of dropping Oko with very minor counter magic left up with Stubborn Denial. Question is, does he play it out, or does he try and... I mean, there's not a lot of options except for making a food token. But then again, the next turn the food token can become an elf. But he says, you know what? Pass. I'm going to hold on. I don't know what you've got in hand. And that Castle Lothlane is going to be able to let Ben draw cards. Ben decides to swing in, going for 4 damage. Yes, 4 damage. Right at Brian's face. And the question is, does he want to pump? Brian says, go to damage. Ben says, yep, 4 damage. And the Knight of the Even Legion is going to get a +1/+1 counter because 4 damage was dealt this turn. And he follows it up with a Blood-Soaked Champion onto the field. Now, Brian draws another Oko, a redundant Oko in this situation. And it's very unfortunate because if Ben had swung at the Oko and killed it, Brian would still have a food token or a 3/3 elk in the form of the Smuggler's Copter. Now Brian is looking at his hand and he's going to pay 3, opting not to take a life to hold up Stubborn Denial mana, but puts a counter on Oko, and it looks like he's going to make a food token. Or, no, he's still deciding on whether or not he wants to make something in elk. +1, he's going to make the Knight of the Ebon Legion an elk. Okay, so the Knight of the Ebon Legion is a 4/4 that's not going to get +1/+1 counters, and that's an interesting play from Brian. I can definitely see why, because Ben would not be able to pump with the Knight of the Ebon Legion, but Ben uses Castle Lock going to draw a card, and he draws for turn, losing 1 life, bringing him down to 9. Land for turn. It looks like he's kind of flooding here a bit, but that doesn't seem to matter. He's got an oppressive board state. He's doing the math. Here is a Mutavault. So Ben has 5, 9, 11 damage on board. And he's going to crash in. All of it at your face, he says. Brian has a, he can make the Copter a 3/3 and block a Scrounger, or block the Mutavault and leave him off a turn. Yeah, it's 11 damage Xaxes, Brian. How do you want to play this? Tapped crew, hold up in response. Fatal Push! It kills a Smuggler's Copter. That's 11 damage Xaxes at your face, and Brian gets taken down by Ben Friedman. And I have to say that one turn where he didn't play an Oko might have been a pivotal turn that he just needed to be able to gain some life, make a 3/3 elk. But making the Knight of the Ebon Legion a 3/3 elk with a +1/+1 counter, I'm not sure about that play. But still, Ben displaying the power of the mono black deck and taking it to the victory. And that's it for us on this time. But we've got more Pioneer action coming soon. So stay tuned, and may all your packs be fat.